Did Representative Adam Schiff lie to the American public for 7 years, or did Senator JD Vance just orchestrate the most brutal political takedown in modern Senate history? I want you to make up dirt on my political opponent. Those exact words were read aloud on the floor of the United States House of Representatives on September 26, 2019. The member of Congress who read them claimed they were the words of the President of the United States. They were not. The words were a complete fabrication, entirely made up by the congressman who read them to launch the impeachment of a sitting president, without ever telling the public in that moment that the words were fake. That member of Congress was Adam Schiff. Fast forward to 26 minutes ago. A Marine veteran from Middletown, Ohio, walked into hearing room 226 of the Dirksen Senate office building. He brought exactly one item: a small, leather-bound, marine green field notebook that he had carried on his deployment to Iraq in 2005. Inside, written entirely in his own handwriting, was the documented record of 7 years of public lies told by the man sitting directly across the witness table. He brought no witnesses because he didn't need any. Across the table, Senator JD Vance looked at Representative Adam Schiff over the notebook in his hand and spoke in a quiet voice. "Congressman, 7 years, 254 television appearances, 6 fabricated quotes, 1 mortgage application, 1 censure vote. Hit that like button and subscribe, because over the next 43 minutes, you are going to watch a Marine veteran from Ohio systematically walk Adam Schiff through his own 7 years of public lies and force him to answer the only question that matters. Did you tell the truth?" Let's go back 26 minutes to the moment Adam Schiff made the worst mistake a politician can make in front of a Marine with a notebook. He tried to play the victim. Wearing a charcoal suit, a white shirt, a navy tie, and a small white pocket square, Schiff sat under the glare of C-SPAN cameras that caught the light on his silver-rimmed glasses. He had been speaking for 3 minutes at the Senate Judiciary hearing on truthfulness in national security matters and federal investigations of member conduct, broadcast live from the main hearing room to 4.6 million Americans. Schiff was not done with his opening attack. "With respect to my colleague from Ohio," he said, "and I do mean respect, because I respect anyone who has been elected to this body." He paused with lawyerly precision. "I find it concerning that the man my Republican colleagues have chosen to question my conduct today is a senator who has been in this chamber for 14 months. Mr. Vance, with respect, has not served on the Senate Intelligence Committee. He has not served on the House Intelligence Committee. He has not held a security clearance higher than what is afforded to a freshman senator," he continued. The half-smile he had worn for 20 years on cable news was visible. The questions Senator Vance is about to ask, with respect, are not the questions of a national security expert. They are the questions of a Yale Law School graduate who has spent the past 5 years writing a memoir about his Appalachian grandmother. The Senate Judiciary Committee deserves better than that today. Schiff sat back slightly and adjusted his glasses, his cable news instinct on full display. "And I would also note, Senator Vance," Schiff continued, "that the Marine deployment you have made central to your political brand was a single deployment to Iraq as a public affairs Marine. You did not see combat. You did not, by your own published memoir, fire a weapon in anger. The combat valor you have implicitly claimed by the wording of your campaign materials is, with respect, a stretching of the truth." He paused for emphasis. "So when you ask me today about, and I am quoting your prepared remarks, truthfulness in federal service, Senator Vance, with respect, you might want to start by examining the truth of your own resume." He sat back while his communications director, a young man named David O., who had been with him for 9 years, nodded once from the wings. What Schiff did not know was this: the man across the witness table had spent the entire previous evening alone in his Senate office with just one staff member. He hadn't brought lawyers, speech notes, or a folder of papers. He brought one marine green leather field notebook, 46 pages long and pocket-sized, alongside a black ceramic coffee mug bearing the United States Marine Corps insignia of an eagle, globe, and anchor. The notebook and mug sat on the witness table. Across the aisle, Senator JD Vance did not respond to the attack. In one single motion, he set the field notebook on the bench, picked up the USMC coffee mug, took a sip, and set it back down. 19 seconds passed. Vance opened the notebook to the first page, the camera zooming in to reveal small, tight pencil handwriting, reflecting Marine NCO discipline. He turned the microphone toward himself. His voice was the quiet, measured, working-class Ohio voice he had used every day since coming home from Iraq. "Congressman, thank you. I will address your 2 points briefly," he said, taking a small breath. "First, my deployment. I served as a public affairs Marine in Iraq from August 2005 to February 2006. 6 months. All materials describe me as a Marine veteran. I am one." He paused for another sip of coffee. "Second, my security clearance. You are correct, Congressman. I do not hold an Intelligence Committee clearance. The questions I am going to ask you today do not require one. The questions are about your public statements on national television, on the floor of the House of Representatives, in federally registered mortgage applications." He let that sit. "Public statements, Congressman. You said them. You wrote them. The American people heard them. The questions today are about whether you told the truth." He picked up the notebook and held it up briefly as camera zoomed in. "Now, Congressman, where I come from, when a man makes you wait, you wait." He set the notebook on the bench and looked at the first page. "I'm going to read you what is in this notebook. 46 pages, my own handwriting. I wrote it last night in my Senate office with one staff member. The notebook covers 7 years of your public statements. 254 television appearances. 6 fabricated quotes from a House floor speech. 3 mortgage applications. 1 House censure vote." He paused. "That is the record, Congressman. The record is the record. We are going to walk through it together." Turning to the first page, he continued, "Let us start with the phrase that made you famous. May 22, 2017, NBC's Meet the Press. You said on national television, quote, 'I have seen more than circumstantial evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia,' end quote. You said it on a Sunday morning to 3 million Americans, 6 months into your time as ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee." Vance slowly turned the page as cameras followed his hand. "Congressman, I am going to read entries from my notebook, slowly, the way I wrote them last night, because the record matters." He read in a flat, Marine NCO tone, 2017. Meet the Press. Quote, "More than circumstantial evidence. July 9, 2017. CNN's State of the Union. Same phrase. October 15, 2017. MSNBC's Morning Joe. Same phrase. December 21, 2017. CNN's New Day. Same phrase." He looked up briefly and set the notebook down. "By my count, Congressman, and I counted slowly last night with one staff member, you used the phrase 'more than circumstantial evidence' on national television 254 times. He let the number sit. 254 times, Congressman, between May of 2017 and March of 2019 on NBC, on CNN, on MSNBC, on CBS, on ABC, on every Sunday show, on every primetime cable broadcast, 254 television appearances telling the American people the same thing, that you had seen evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia." He picked up the notebook and turned the page. On March 22, 2019, Special Counsel Robert Mueller submitted his final report to the Attorney General. The report was 448 pages. It examined every claim of Trump campaign coordination with Russian government efforts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election. The report's conclusion, reading directly from page 2 of the executive summary, quote, "The investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities." End quote. He set the notebook down. In plain English, Congressman Mueller, a lifelong Republican, FBI director under both Bush and Obama, a decorated Marine, found no collusion. He let the fact hang in the air. "You said you had seen more than circumstantial evidence of it 254 times on national television to approximately 1 billion cumulative American viewers across those broadcasts." He paused. On March 23, 2019, the day after the Mueller Report was released. "Did you, Congressman, on any platform, retract the claim?" Schiff lifted his chin. his half-smile returning as his glasses caught the light. "Senator Vance," he said, "the Mueller report did not exonerate the president. The report explicitly stated on page 2 of Volume 2, and I am quoting it now, while this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him." End quote. My statements about more than circumstantial evidence of collusion were grounded in the documented facts available to the House Intelligence Committee at the time. I stand by those statements. The American people deserve a member of Congress who will speak frankly about Russian interference. Even when that speech is uncomfortable, even when, with respect, that speech is criticized by partisan voices. Schiff sat back and adjusted his glasses. Vance waited until he was done, then spoke. "Congressman, I want to address that defense briefly." He picked up the USMC mug, took a sip, and set it down. "You said your statements were, quote, grounded in the documented facts available to the House Intelligence Committee at the time." End quote. That is a careful sentence, Congressman. I want every American watching this hearing to listen to what that sentence actually means. He paused. In plain English, the sentence means you saw classified information that, in your interpretation, suggested collusion. The Mueller investigation, with full subpoena power, with FBI resources, with 2 years of work, with 18 attorneys, with 40 FBI agents, with 2,800 subpoenas, with 500 witnesses, examined the exact same underlying facts and found no collusion. He let it sit. The two findings cannot both be correct, Congressman. Either you saw evidence Mueller did not find, or you said you saw evidence that was not there. There is no third option, Congressman. There rarely is. Schiff leaned forward, his voice arriving faster this time. "Senator, the Mueller investigation operated within specific legal parameters that did not encompass the full breadth of what constitutes collusion in a counterintelligence sense. There is a distinction between criminal conspiracy, which Mueller examined, and coordination consistent with foreign influence, which is a national security concept. My statements address the latter. Mueller examined the former. The two are not interchangeable. The American people, with respect, should understand that distinction." The progressive press section moved as one reporter began typing rapidly. Vance waited, picked up the mug, took a sip, and set it down. "Congressman, you said something just now that I want to repeat back. You said the distinction between criminal conspiracy and coordination consistent with foreign influence." He paused. "Where I come from, that is not a distinction. That is a hedge." He let it sit. "In plain English, Congressman, when you went on national television 254 times and said, 'more than circumstantial evidence of collusion,' the American people who were watching did not understand you to mean coordination consistent with foreign influence in a counterintelligence sense. They understood you to mean what you said. They understood you to mean Donald Trump committed a crime. 254 times, Congressman, to 320 million Americans. You said you had evidence of a crime. Mueller, after 2 years, found no crime. The country is allowed to remember the difference between what you said and what Mueller found," Vance continued. "The country is allowed to remember which of you turned out to be telling the truth." He let the notebook rest on the bench, the small, tight pencil handwriting visible to the cameras. 254 entries, each one a date, a network, a show, the same phrase written out over and over again in his own hand. 254 entries, Congressman. I wrote each one out last night by hand from my Senate office. The pencil is in my pocket. The notebook is on this bench. The dates are real. The shows are real. The phrase is the same phrase every time. More than circumstantial evidence. More than circumstantial evidence. More than circumstantial evidence. 254 times, Congressman. He turned to the next page and looked back at Schiff. My grandmother used to say something, Congressman. Mama in Middletown, Ohio. She did not have a Yale law degree. She used to say, when a man tells you he is sure of something and the next day it turns out he was not, you forgive him once. When he tells you the same thing the next day, you forgive him twice. When he tells you the same thing for 2 years and never apologizes, you stop calling him a congressman. You start calling him something else. The hearing room went quiet. Hit that like button if you have ever in your life heard a Marine veteran from Ohio quote his Appalachian grandmother on a federal microphone. Comment more than circumstantial if you remember the 254 times. Subscribe because the next bomb is about a fabricated quote read on the floor of the House of Representatives about a phone call that never said what Adam Schiff claimed it said. Vance turned the next page of the notebook, camera zooming in on a new section, heading visible in his handwriting. Congressman, September 26, 2019 House Intelligence Committee hearing. You opened the hearing on the impeachment inquiry as chairman. He looked up at Schiff. In your opening statement, you said something I am going to quote, your own words from the official transcript of that hearing. He read slowly. Quote, the president said I am going to say this only 7 times, so you better listen good. End quote. He paused. Quote, I want you to make up dirt on my political opponent. Lots of it. End quote. He paused again. Quote, and by the way, do not call me again. I will call you when you have done what I asked. End quote. He set the notebook down. You said those words, Congressman, on the floor of the House Intelligence Committee as chairman, reading what you presented to be a transcript of President Trump's call with President Zelensky of Ukraine. He paused. Those words were not in the transcript, Congressman. None of them. The transcript of that call had been declassified the day before. The American public could read it. You read fabricated quotes instead. Picking up the notebook again, he said, by my count, and I counted slowly last night with one staff member, and I went through the official transcript 6 times. Your opening statement contained 6 fabricated quotes. 6 sentences you presented as if they were the words of the President of the United States. 6 sentences that the President never said. He looked up. After Republicans on the committee objected, you defended the fabricated quotes. You said, and I am quoting you again, quote, it was at least in part, in parody. End quote. He let that sit. In parody, Congressman. You read fabricated quotes from the President of the United States on the floor of the House Intelligence Committee while opening an impeachment inquiry, and you defended it as parody. Schiff lifted his chin, the lawyerly voice returning. Senator, the opening statement was a clearly delineated rhetorical device. I made plain multiple times in the same hearing that I was characterizing the essence of the call. The actual transcript was publicly available. The American people had access to both. The rhetorical framing was not a fabrication. It was a summary, in the form of a parody of the substance of the call. I have never wavered from that explanation. He paused and adjusted his glasses. And the Constitution, Senator, which I assume you have read since your time at Yale Law School, protects rhetorical speech on the floor of Congress. Vance waited, picked up the USMC mug, took a sip, and set it down. Congressman, I want to address 2 things you said. Slowly. He paused. First, the Constitution, which I have read. Article 1, Section 6, Speech and Debate Clause. You are correct. Members of Congress have constitutional immunity for speech on the floor. That immunity protects you from civil suit for what you said. It does not, Congressman, make what you said true. He let it sit. You can stand on the floor of the House of Representatives and say the moon is made of cheese. The Constitution protects you from being sued for saying it. The Constitution does not make the moon cheese. The hearing room stayed quiet. Second, the defense that your opening statement was a, quote, clearly delineated rhetorical device, end quote. Congressman, I went back to the official transcript last night, page 11, lines 2 to 47, the portion where you read the fabricated quotes. There is no, and I am reading the transcript directly, the punctuation that the official stenographer used. There is no parenthetical note indicating parody. There is no qualifying phrase such as paraphrasing or characterizing or in essence. You introduce the quotes with the phrase, the President said. Then you read the fabricated quotes as if they were the words of the President. He paused. In plain English, Congressman, you presented fabrications as quotations with no in-the-moment indication that they were fabrications. That is not parody. Parody is labeled, The Onion is labeled, Saturday Night Live is labeled. Your opening statement was not labeled. It was presented as testimony. He turned the page of the notebook. Congressman, the American people who watched that hearing, the people who tuned into C-SPAN that morning, they did not have the official transcript open on their laptops. They had your voice coming through their televisions, reading words that you presented as the words of their president. He let it sit. That is the foundation on which the first Trump impeachment was built, a fabricated quote read by the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee as if it were real. 3 months later, in January 2020, the United States Senate acquitted President Trump of both impeachment articles by votes of 52 to 48 and 53 to 47. In plain English, Congressman, the institution you led, the House Intelligence Committee, initiated the impeachment of a sitting president based on words he never said, words you made up, words you defended as parody when caught. He turned the page. My grandmother used to say something else, Congressman. Mama again. She used to say when you have to call your own words parody after the fact, you did not write them in the first place, you wrote them after. The hearing room went quiet again. Comment: 6 fabricated quotes if you have ever in your life heard a Marine veteran walk a member of Congress through his own fabricated impeachment opening statement. Subscribe, because the next bomb is about money, about a Maryland mortgage application, and about a man who voted in California for 23 years. Vance turned the next page of the notebook and took a sip of coffee. Congressman, I am going to tell you a small story now about a man who owned 2 houses, one in California, one in Maryland. He looked at the page. You bought a house in Burbank, California, in 1994. The address is on the public record. You have lived in that house, by your own statements to the press, for approximately 30 years. You vote in California. You filed your federal income tax with a California address. You served as a member of Congress representing California's 28th district from 2001 to 2023, then California's 30th district. You ran for the United States Senate as a candidate from California. He paused. In 2003, you also bought a second house in Potomac, Maryland, 8,000 square feet, approximately $2.5 million in total purchase value over the years. He turned the page slowly. On the mortgage application for the Maryland house, and I am reading directly from the publicly filed mortgage documents, you listed the Maryland address as your primary residence. You did this on your initial mortgage in 2003. You did this on a refinancing in 2013. You did this on a second refinancing in 2020. 3 mortgage applications, Congressman, all of them claiming Maryland as your primary residence. He let it sit. Now I want to explain to every American watching this hearing what primary residence means on a federal mortgage application in plain English. He paused. Federal mortgage law gives different rates to different categories of property. Primary residence gets the best rate. Second home gets a higher rate. Investment property gets the highest rate. The interest rate difference between primary residence and second home is roughly 75%. On $1 million mortgage, 75% is approximately $7,500 per year over 20 years. That is $150,000. He let that sit. In plain English, Congressman, you saved approximately $150,000 over 20 years by telling the federal government that your Maryland house was your primary residence, while you told California voters that your Burbank house was your primary residence. While you voted in California elections, while you served as a member of Congress from California. He let it sit. $150,000, Congressman. That is a number. Let me put that number in plain English for the country watching this hearing. In Middletown, Ohio, where I grew up, the median household income last year was $48,000. $150,000 is more than 3 years of work for the average Middletown family. In Burbank, California, where you have lived for 30 years, the median household income last year was $82,000. $150,000 is almost 2 years of work for the average Burbank family. In Potomac, Maryland, where your second house is, the median household income is $226,000. So in Potomac, $150,000 is less than 1 year of work. He let it sit. In plain English, Congressman, you saved more money than 3 years of work for the average family in my hometown by signing 3 mortgage applications that said your primary residence was a house you did not primarily live in. He turned the page. Both statements cannot be true, Congressman. The Burbank house cannot be your primary residence for California voting purposes, and the Potomac house cannot be your primary residence for federal mortgage purposes. At the same time, The federal definition of primary residence is, and I am quoting, Internal Revenue Service Publication 553, page 7, quote, the property where the taxpayer spends the majority of the year and which serves as the principal place of residence, end quote. You spent the majority of every year, Congressman, in either California or Washington, D.C. You did not spend the majority of any year, by your own public schedule, in Potomac, Maryland. He let it sit. In plain English, Congressman, by the federal government's own definition of primary residence, the Maryland mortgage applications were inaccurate. By California's own definition of voter residence, your California voter registration was inaccurate. One of the two statements has to be wrong. The other one might also be wrong. Both cannot be right. Schiff cleared his throat, his hand drifting to his glasses to push them up his nose. The half-smile was noticeably thinner now. Senator Vance, he said, the mortgage application question of primary residence is a financial industry term of art. It does not have the same definition as the IRS or as the Federal Election Commission residency requirements. The lenders who issued my mortgages were aware of my political career. They were aware that my work required me to spend significant time in Washington, D.C. The Potomac residence, which is closer to my workplace than the Burbank residence, was, for federal mortgage purposes, my work-adjacent primary residence. This is a common arrangement for federal officials. It is, with respect, not fraud. It is the standard practice. Two reporters in the front row wrote the phrase standard practice in their notebooks and underlined it. Vance set the notebook down, picked up the USMC mug, took a sip, and set it down. Congressman, you said one thing in there I want to repeat back. You called this, quote, the standard practice, end quote. He paused. Standard practice, Congressman. Where I come from. That is a bricklayer's term. It means the way most people do something. So I want to ask you a question. He let it sit. In Middletown, Ohio, where I grew up, when a working man buys a house, he tells the bank where he lives. He tells the IRS the same thing. He tells his employer the same thing. He tells his county clerk the same thing. The same address on every form. Because in Middletown, Ohio, when you tell the bank one thing and the county clerk another thing, that is not standard practice. He paused. That is two different stories, and you can only tell two different stories about where you live if at least one of them is wrong. The hearing room went quiet. Now, the Federal Housing Finance Agency Inspector General, which oversees federal mortgage fraud, referred your file to the Department of Justice in May of 2024. The referral is in the public record. The Inspector General's letter, and I am reading from the redacted public copy, describes, quote, potentially actionable mortgage misrepresentation regarding primary residence designation across multiple federally guaranteed loan products, end quote. He turned the page. The Department of Justice has not, as of this hearing, made a public determination on the referral. Whether they bring charges or not, that is their decision. The American people will hear about it when they make it. He looked directly at Schiff. What I am asking today, Congressman, is not whether the DOJ charges you. That is their job. What I am asking is whether the American people today, hearing the math, the $7,500 a year, the 20 years, the two contradictory statements, will conclude that you saved $150,000 by lying to the federal government about where you live. He paused. I think they already have, Congressman. The math is the math. The record is the record. The hearing room stayed silent. Comment 150,000 if you have ever wondered how a sitting congressman with 2 houses and 3 mortgage applications can call telling 2 different stories standard practice. Subscribe, because the next bomb is the one that in 2023 made Adam Schiff the first member of Congress in modern American history to be both removed from the Intelligence Committee and censured by the House for lying about a federal investigation. Vance turned to the last section of the notebook, took a sip from the USMC mug, and set it down. Congressman, 2 events, 5 months apart, both involving your conduct on the House Intelligence Committee. I am going to walk through each one slowly. He looked at the page. January 18, 2023. Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, removed you from the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. The Speaker's letter, public record, cited two grounds. First, quote, a pattern of misleading public statements regarding ongoing federal investigations, end quote. Second, quote, selective disclosure of classified information for political purposes, end quote. He let it sit. You were the first member of Congress in modern American history to be removed from the House Intelligence Committee for cause. Not for a procedural reason. Not for a committee reorganization. For cause, specifically for lying, specifically for leaks. He turned the page. 5 months later, June 21, 2023, House Resolution 12. Censure resolution brought by Representative Ana Paulina Luna of Florida. The resolution had 4 findings. I'm going to read each one slowly. He read from his notebook as the cameras zoomed in on the visible handwriting. Finding 1. Quote, Representative Adam Schiff repeatedly told television audiences that he had seen evidence of collusion that had not been provided to other members of his committee. End quote. Finding 2. Quote, Representative Adam Schiff misled the American public about the contents of phone calls with the Ukrainian whistleblowers' representatives. End quote. Finding 3. Quote, Representative Adam Schiff fabricated direct quotations of President Donald J. Trump during the official opening of the impeachment inquiry, presenting these fabrications as actual statements. End quote. Finding 4. Quote, Representative Adam Schiff exhibited a pattern of conduct unbecoming of a member of the House of Representatives in his use of national security platforms to advance political narratives unsupported by classified evidence. End quote. He set the notebook down. The censure resolution passed 213 to 209, Congressman. You walked to the well of the House of Representatives. The Speaker read the censure aloud. You stood alone. Your own party, every Democrat, voted no. The vote was on party lines. He paused. You were on June 21, 2023, the first sitting member of Congress in modern American history to be censured for misleading the American public about a federal investigation. He squared the notebook on the bench, picked up the USMC mug, took one sip, and set it down. Congressman, I want every American watching this hearing to understand what those two events mean. In plain English, removal from intelligence is institutional. The Speaker has the authority. The Speaker exercised it. That is a procedural action. It can be reversed by a future Speaker. Censure is a moral action. The full House votes. The member walks to the well. The Speaker reads the censure aloud. Censure is one of the highest official rebukes the House can issue, short of expulsion. He paused. In the modern era, by which I mean the past 40 years, only 13 members of Congress have been censured by the House. For comparison, several thousand members have served during that period. The rate is approximately 3%. You are one of the 13 congressmen. He let it sit. Out of those 13, only one, you, was censured for the specific charge of misleading the American public about a federal investigation. The other 12 were censured for, in various combinations, financial misconduct, sexual harassment, racist statements, and one case of bringing fistfights into the chamber. He paused. In plain English, Congressman, you are not just one of 13, you are one of one. You hold the distinction of being the only member of Congress in the modern era to be officially censured by the institution for the specific act of lying about a federal investigation while serving as chairman of the committee that oversaw it. That is the record, Congressman. The record is the record. Schiff lifted his chin and pushed his glasses up. The lawyerly voice came back, the same voice he had used on cable news for 20 years. Senator Vance, he said, the censure resolution of June 2023 was a partisan exercise brought by a freshman representative who has herself been the subject of multiple ethics complaints voted on along partisan lines without a single Democratic vote in favor. The censure represented the culmination of a 6-year campaign of partisan retaliation for my role in the impeachment of a president. This body's Republican majority has since 2016 treated as untouchable. The censure, Senator, with respect, is not a moral verdict on me. It is a partisan verdict on the impeachment process. He paused and adjusted his glasses. The American people understand the difference. They re-elected me to the House in 2022. They elected me to the United States Senate in 2024 by a margin of 19 percentage points. The voters of California rendered the moral verdict, Senator. The voters disagree with the censure resolution. The voters are sovereign, with respect. The progressive press section clapped 3 times, and a producer in the back stood up. Vance did not interrupt. The applause faded. He picked up the field notebook again, held it up briefly, and set it back down. Congressman, you said one thing I want to repeat back. You said the voters are sovereign. He paused. You are right about that. The voters are sovereign of California. They elected you to represent California in the United States Senate. The voters of California, Congressman, are not sovereign over the institutional record of the House of Representatives. The censure happened. The House voted. The Speaker read it. The record exists. No vote in California can erase the page in the congressional record dated June 21, 2023. He let it sit. And the voters of California, Congressman, by your own framing, they re-elected you knowing about the censure, knowing about the Intel Committee removal, knowing about the Mueller investigation, knowing about the parody quotes. That is their right. 12 million California voters made that decision. The country accepts it. He paused. What the country does not accept, Congressman, what the country today watching this hearing has come to remember, is that the institutional record of the United States House of Representatives, the record made by members from 43 states, by a vote that included members from Republican districts and Democratic districts, stands. You were censured, Congressman. The first time the House did that for the specific charge of lying about a federal investigation in modern history, by a vote of 213 to 209, with your own party voting no along party lines. The vote happened. The page exists. The record is the record. The hearing room went quiet. This was the moment. Schiff's right hand drifted to his face, reaching up to take hold of his glasses and remove them. The cameras zoomed in. The glasses were in his right hand. He looked at them for a moment, then moved to put them back on his face. His hand shook. He could not put them back on. He moved the hand again, slower this time. The glasses approached his face and stopped 2 inches away. The hand stayed there, trembling slightly. The tremor was small, but the cameras caught it. He lowered the hand and set the glasses on the desk in front of him. He looked at them. 11 seconds passed. In 11 seconds on national television, in front of 4.6 million live viewers, the iconic accessory that Schiff had worn for 30 years of public life sat on the desk in front of him, out of his hand, off his face, the brand visibly broken. He did not pick them up. The cameras held on the silver-rimmed glasses. Vance picked up the field notebook, held it briefly, and set it down. Congressman, one question. Yes or no? He let it sit. Across 7 years of public statements, across 254 television appearances, across 6 fabricated quotes on the House floor, across 3 mortgage applications, across 1 censure vote, did you tell the American people the truth? The hearing room was silent. Schiff's glasses sat on the desk. He did not pick them up. The first second passed. The second, the third. He looked at his communications director. David O. was no longer looking at him. The fourth, the fifth, the sixth. He looked at the field notebook in Vance's hand, then at the glasses on his desk. The seventh, the eighth, the ninth. He cleared his throat and started to speak. Senator, the framing of this question is fundamentally Congressman, yes or no. Did you tell the American people the truth? The 10th. The 11th. I'll wait, Congressman. The 12th. The 13th. Schiff said nothing. The 14th. Vance nodded once. He picked up the field notebook and put it in his coat pocket. He picked up the USMC mug and stood up. Mr. Chairman, I yield the remainder of my time. The notebook is entered into the record. The country can read it tonight. The chairman gave a 30-minute recess. Schiff stood. He did not pick up his glasses. He gathered his papers slowly, not looking at David O., not looking at Vance. He walked toward the side door. At the door, he turned, the cameras following him. Vance was still standing at the bench, the field notebook in his coat pocket, the USMC mug in his hand. He was not looking at Schiff. He was looking at the glasses on the witness table. Congressman, Schiff paused. My door is open, Congressman, Vance said. Anytime you bring those glasses back, we will go through the notebook page by page. The country will wait. Vance set the USMC mug on the bench, his voice dropping lower. The record is the record, Senator. It always was. Schiff did not respond. He walked out, leaving the glasses on the desk. The door closed behind him with the kind of sound a heavy door makes when nobody on either side wants to slam it, but nobody wants to soften it either. The aftermath came fast. By 11:38 that morning, 4 hashtags had taken the top 4 trending positions on every American platform. Number there accordis there, #twive4, number standard practice, and number 1 of 1. The 4-7-second clip of Schiff's hand failing to put his glasses back on was reposted to every major social media platform within 20 minutes of the recess. By sundown, the clip had passed 73 million views. The clip of Vance quietly closing the field notebook 12 seconds. No audio passed 89 million. Schiff's communications director released a statement at 1:14 that afternoon, consisting of 12 sentences. The statement used the word partisan 4 times, retaliation 3 times, and right-wing distortion twice. It did not mention the censure resolution, the parody quotes, the Maryland mortgage, or the glasses. That statement, in a way, was the entire scandal wrapped into 12 sentences. The man who had built his career on the brand of speaking truth to power had just spent 28 minutes of live television refusing to answer one simple question. Did you tell the American people the truth? And by sundown, his communications director hadn't put the question, the answer, or the absence of an answer into the public statement. This is the resistance. In a single Wednesday morning, the resistance, the cable news commentariat, the MSNBC primetime block, the CNN Sunday morning circuit, the Daily Beast, the Atlantic, the Washington Post columnists, and the hosts and pundits who for 7 years treated Adam Schiff as the conscience of the Democratic Party, the man who would, by the force of his lawyerly precision, hold the Trump administration accountable for alleged wrongdoing, watched it all fall apart. 7 years later, that lawyerly precision has become the documented record of misleading public statements by a member of Congress about federal investigations. The 254 claims of more than circumstantial evidence on national television, the Mueller Report finding no collusion, the fabricated quotes on the House floor defended as parody after the fact, the Maryland mortgage applications versus the California voter registrations, the 213 to 209 censure vote, the first removal from the House Intelligence Committee for cause in modern history, the mama quote, the glasses on the desk, the hands that could not work. The resistance did not just betray the working class. In the case of Adam Schiff, the resistance betrayed the institution it claimed to defend, the United States Congress. The resistance betrayed the constitutional process by initiating an impeachment based on fabricated quotes. The resistance betrayed the national intelligence community by leaking selectively for political purposes. The resistance betrayed the American voter who tuned into MSNBC at 9:00 p.m., expecting to hear the truth, and instead heard 254 times across 2.5 years the exact same phrase that Mueller would ultimately find unsupported. And the Democratic Party, watching all of this for 7 straight years, said nothing. Speaker Pelosi defended Schiff in 2019 after the parody reading. Speaker Jeffries defended Schiff in 2023 after the censure. Senator Schumer welcomed Schiff into the Senate Democratic Caucus in January 2025. Without an apology from Schiff, without a retraction, without a behavioral change, every Democratic leader in Washington, when given the choice between Adam Schiff and the institutional integrity of Congress, chose Adam Schiff, chose the brand, chose the cable news clips, chose the seat in the Senate. And the institutional integrity of Congress, the 735 members who have served since Schiff entered office in 2001, the career staffers in the Intelligence Committee whose work was leaked, the 33 intelligence professionals in the Mueller investigation whose findings were dismissed, and the American voters who watched 254 television appearances and believed what they heard, they paid the bill. The bill was paid in 7 years of cable news, truth being treated as legislative truth, in federal investigation, findings being dismissed as partisan exercises, in fabricated quotes being defended as parody, in 2 House mortgages being defended as standard practice. The congressman from California walked out of the Dirksen building at 12:14 that afternoon, His glasses did not walk with him. They stayed on the witness table. The black SUV at the curb did not know where to take him, and neither did he. The driver, after 23 minutes of circling the Capitol, finally asked, "Congressman, where to?" He did not answer because there was no answer. There is no road in the United States of America today that takes a sitting member of Congress home from a hearing where his own 7-year record of misleading public statements has just been read back to him in his own words by a Marine veteran from Middletown, Ohio, from a notebook the Marine wrote out by hand the night before in hearing room 226 of the Dirksen Senate Office building. On a Wednesday morning, the country read the record. The country read the 254 television appearances, the 6 fabricated quotes, the 3 mortgage applications, and the censure resolution, word by word, slowly, from the notebook in the Marine veteran's own handwriting. And the country saw that the congressman from California, the cable news resistance, and the Democratic Party that protected him for 7 straight years could not, on a federal microphone, answer yes or no to whether he told the American people the truth. If you made it this far, you just heard the true story of the morning. A Marine veteran from Middletown, Ohio, sat across from the most televised member of the House Intelligence Committee in modern American history and relentlessly read his own 7 years of public statements back to him. From a Marine field notebook, in his own handwriting, he read the 254 television appearances, the 6 fabricated quotes, the 3 mortgage applications, and the censure resolution, word by word. The congressman refused to answer whether he told the truth. He removed his glasses. His hands shook, and he could not put the glasses back on as the entire country watched. Smash that like button if you believe a Marine field notebook still beats a cable news appearance. Subscribe if you want to see what happens to the rest of the resistance in the months ahead. Comment, "The record is the record," if you think the question, "Did you tell the truth?" just became the most devastating 5 words in American political television. And share this with the working-class American in your life, the actual one, not the imagined one in a resistance fundraising email tonight. Congressman, when you put your glasses back on in front of your bathroom mirror, the country wants you to know it watched your hands. The country wants you to know it heard the censure resolution read aloud. The country wants you to know it saw the 2-house math. The country tonight, Congressman, has only one question left. The notebook, Congressman. The pages Senator Vance wrote out by hand, with your own statements, with your own dates, with your own television appearances, were they real, yes or no? The record is the record, Senator, and the country is waiting, but what do you truly believe will happen next?